It's that time again.
Yep. We are Team Wester.
And you are the most important thing to us.
Team Wester
Podcast. It's all about the team.
Well, welcome to another exciting edition of the Team Wester podcast out here at the Toyota of Orchard Park store once again today. I'm Clay Moden, joined by Brad Gelber, and today it is Steve Tasker as our guest. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to be here. My first time.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you guys.
It's incredible how fast this month has gone.
Yeah, the first month's already almost completely gone. That's what I say. The days are long, but the years go fast.
Absolutely true. So we've seen your face before, obviously, heard your voice on the radio ads. Before we get really deep into this, where did this come about, your relationship with Wester and being the OG spokesperson for Team Wester?
It happened, it was like 05, 06. And they had, they've been advertising since, the 50s. So they've had a number of campaigns over the years, and they had their campaign last time. There's a couple of philosophies you can use, whether you can use somebody who's famous for something else and comes and be your spokesman, or you get a person who's a good spokesperson but not famous at all. And the only way he's famous is for your company, right? Mm-hmm. You can have the only place you ever see this guy is for Wester, or you can have somebody like me who's famous for playing football come in and be your spokesman, so you'd associate with that. And they had done it the other way with a guy who was only the Wester spokesman. And that's the only place you ever saw him, and he did all the commercial stuff, just like I'm doing now. And he left. He got other opportunities, wanted to do something else. So he left town and retired and said, I'm going to do something. I got another opportunity. So they said, okay, when they totally reevaluated their marketing plan and and they said, well, who you? And so they came up with a list of people, and I was probably the first guy that said yes, so I don't know how far down the list they went, but yeah, and they asked me if I'd do it, and it's 16, going on 17 years ago.
Incredible. I mean, like you said, it's been a blur. 17 years later, here we are, at a Wester location talking to the original guy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, not the original guy, but yeah.
The most famous original guy.
Yes. Yeah, it's been great. It's been really great. And I keep doing, I do radio ads. We both do. We do radio ads for them. And the crew that we use to shoot the commercials is the same crew. So we're pretty well-oiled machine right now. So we can crank out commercials fast and they, all that. So it's been fun to watch not only the ads come, a long way, but also Wester has grown a ton since I got the job. Mm-hmm. They're literally much, much bigger than they're, I think, at least twice as big as they were when I first started. Of course, the country's been through a lot since then, but yeah, it's been fun to watch.
And when you're, obviously over the years, as the company's grown, like you said, I think back to a lot, predating me or any of some of the marketing team, but looking back, there's been some really fun campaigns you guys have done, and I think about the water balloons. I think about some of the you popping out of the zero or something like that over the years. Is there like a campaign that maybe pops out to you that you look back and you're like, I love doing that?
We have a couple of them. The Labor Day ones where we had barbecues and three-legged race. We had a whole slew of those ads. And we also had one for the Olympics. Remember, we did all the Olympic ads, and they had me flipping over the front of the car, which was done by somebody else. I don't know if I let a cat out of the bag. I had a stunt double. So they did that. A ton of them. There were a lot of fun to do, and it was great. And it's so fun to work. We have a great crew, really polished crew, really economical. We'll go out and shoot commercials, and even if we're shooting different commercials on the same day in the same location, man, they crank through them fast, and it's a lot of fun to be a part of. It goes fast, it goes great, very much give and take on what I say, how I'm presented. It's just fun to work with.
For those that may not know a little bit behind the scenes, are you giving your lines in advance? Are these things that you kind of make up as you go? Do you have to memorize your lines for these spots?
Well, no. Here's the way it works. It's pretty cool because this is the way it works so well. It's a car commercial. It's 30 seconds. You only have so much time. And you give them kind of one line at a time, and then there's usually it breaks away to a video or something or whatever. And it's rare that I have to say even two sentences in succession.
Right.
It's just one sentence, deliver it, and then we stop, and I say the other sentence, or somebody answers me, and I have to wait for, so it's very short bursts of dialogue that I use, and I don't see the scripts until I get there that morning. I don't even.
It's not something you have to memorize.
No, and then also when we get there, because Steve Briscoe, who is the writer, kind of creative guy behind it, really good. He was
the value guy,
formerly the
those.
dancing
Right, yeah,
value
right.
guy. He's we're close friends now after all these years. Bob Stahura, Buffalo Advertising. So I'll say, listen, I don't like the way that sounds. How about if I do this, that, and I'll say it, and they'll I like that better. Listen, so they'll change it, and let me do that, and we'll deliver it. Like if there's a funny line or a self-deprecating line or whatever line it is, we'll try it 3 or 4 or 5 different ways in rehearsal, and they say, yeah, that's the one we want. Let's go with that. Then I'll deliver it, and then they'll say, yeah, and then they'll say, change it just subtly like this. The details are unbelievable. They take great pride in, so I'll give you, and Sherry's there too. Sherry's our makeup wardrobe.
One of the best in the business.
Right, so I'm sitting there, and we'll do the take, and they'll be, that's perfect, that's awesome, and she'll go, I go, what? She'll come up, and she'll do this.
Pretty well.
She'll do it
that's
again.
TV, it's a
Fix
kinda
your
big
hair.
deal.
Right.
bit.
She goes, I don't like that. Once in a while that happens.
Something that I haven't had a chance to ask a lot of our guests on this podcast with Team West Her, but it's something that obvious. What was your first car? And when you signed a contract, was there a car that you're like, all right, I got the money now, I'm going to buy this car?
No. The first car I ever owned was a 1973 Opel Manta, and had a standard shift, and I still drive a standard shift today even so. And then the car I bought when I became a pro athlete was a Saab 900 Turbo.
Nice.
I drove that car until it wouldn't go. I mean, I love that car. And actually, my brother got it. He wanted it, so I sold it to him. He wanted to drive it, so he drove it. And he totaled it later, but it was it was an inline 4 with a turbocharger. It was fantastic. I drove that in my first couple of years in the pros, and that was it, man.
A couple of years ago, too, I remember we actually surprised your Scott Beeler, our president CEO, surprised you. They had remade up one of your vehicles, and you were talk a little bit about that.
I had when I went on the Wall of Fame, 2007. I went on the Wall of Fame with the Bills, and they gave me a vehicle. And there was this big conversation. What am I going to get? Because I was going to either, they're going to get a Corvette or a Mustang or whatever, and I'm not going to get I thought about a Corvette. In fact, they ordered me one, and I got it. And it was I was like, I'm not going to get it. I won't drive a Corvette. It's not me, I'm not that guy, right? And I go, is it all right if I don't take the Corvette and I get a Jeep Wrangler, like a 4-door? And it was, I think 08 was the first year they had them, or 07 or 08 was the first year they had 4 doors. I said, I want one of those. So they said, sure, so sure enough. So
Probably saving a little money on that too.
Right. So it was kind of cool because I come in and I sit down with the guys and I order everything I want on it. And of course, it's got all the bells and whistles because, it's virtually free. So I get all the bells and whistles. I got it. It's awesome. And they said, it's going to be, it's going to be a wait. It's going to be like 8 to 10 weeks. I don't care. It's, fine. I'm not in a hurry. Unless we can find one that's got all your specs, and then we'll have it. So okay, we'll have to ask other dealerships or whatever. So I go home, and like 7 days later, I get a call from the guy, and he says, "Hey, guess what?" I go, "What's up?" And he goes, "I'm looking at your Jeep right now." I go, "Yeah, you found one." He goes, "Well, sort of." I go, "What?" So he goes, "Come in, I'll tell you the story." So I go in there, and Scott's there, and he's there, and it's great. The thing's brand new. And I go, "So you found one with it?" And he goes, "No, not exactly." He kind of gives me the Scott, called him and told him it was for you, and it was what the deal was. It was the club gave it to you. It was a gift for you, and they built it from the ground up in like 7 days.
Oh, wow.
It was brand new. Had it literally 0.0 miles on it.
The Steve Tasker edition.
Yeah, right.
That's amazing.
So that was kind of cool. And then, so I drove that thing. That was my car. And we named it Ralph after Ralph C. Wilson, the owner of the Bills, right? So the Jeep's name was Ralph. So I drove Ralph every day. I got an 08. I got in May of 08, I think. And drove him every day. And then, you know, my kids were little and they grew up, and then, you know, my kids started driving. I had 4 boys that went to Franny's over in Hamburg here, you know, St. Francis.
Where we actually shoot some of the
Right, where we
commercials now.
shoot the Josh Allen commercials. So all 4 of my boys drive. They're all driving standard, you know. So they're all very proud of the fact they're millennials and Generation
That's
X.
a
or
big
whatever,
deal, really.
That they,
It's a
that
dying
they know
form
how to
of
do
art,
it.
yeah.
So all 4 of them drove Ralph to and from St. Francis at different times. They all, you know, so was their, you know, they all had strong attachment to it. But you know, if you're going to let your 4 high school boys drive your Jeep, it's going to get beat up, right? Which it did. So, you know, a couple of 100,000 miles into the Jeep, I'm still doing West Her commercials. And Matt Lasher calls me. He says, "Hey, can you come over to corporate for a minute, Scott?" I go, "Yeah, sure." So I go over and I laugh. I tell people I get called to the principal's office, right?
Yeah.
But I went, and Scott's great. We're sitting. He goes, "Hey, how you doing?" Good. He goes, "You still driving your Jeep?" I go, "Yeah, I'm never getting rid of it because it's kind of it's sentimental. And I'll do whatever. I'll give it a, you know, I'll keep it on the road and everything. But I'm going to give it to one of my grandkids when they can drive. Right? I'm going to teach them how to drive a stick shift, and I'm going to pass it down to the family. Sooner or later, somebody will get rid of it, but I'm not going to. I'm going to." He goes, "That's awesome." He goes, "Are you sure?" And I goes, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, I'm not getting rid of it." He goes, "That's awesome. It's really great. But you are our spokesperson." I was like, "Oh, you don't like me driving this heat?"
Couple 100,000 miles.
Right.
on the Jeep.
I mean, it was dinged up. I mean, it was, you know, yeah, it looked it. And I go, "Oh." He goes, "So how about this?" He goes, "How about if you give me your Jeep and let me give it a hug? I'll have my guys give it a hug. We'll paint it, you know, put a new tire on it. And then I'll give you a good deal on a new one." Yeah. I said, "Awesome." And he goes, "And then I'll take your Jeep and I'll store it myself. I'll keep it for you." And I was really touched by it because the Jeep does have a place in our family, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, I was really touched by it, and I called my wife and told her that. She cried on the phone when I told her because it was really cool because it meant something to us. So then my wife calls my youngest son who drove the thing by himself with his buddies. You know, he drove the thing to school, and I told him, and he got choked up over it. So it was awesome. So I get a new Jeep. There's a video of it too. Maybe we'll get a chance to show it, but there's a video of when they took me over, and there's a bunch of great West Her people who Scott gave them the go ahead to fix the Jeep up. So they put their all into it. I mean, we go over, it's under a tarp, and I said, thank you. And I brought footballs and jerseys for all the guys who worked on Ralph and stuff. So they come in and they jerk this tarp off of Ralph, and it's just like pristine.
Okay.
It was just awesome. Oh. Just unbelievable. I was like, wow, it was awesome. My 2 oldest sons were there with me and my wife, and they blew us away.
And it's still stored. It's still.
He still got it. Yeah. He gave it to us for like
great
this
story.
summer. They brought it to us for a month. We drove it for a little bit for a month, and then we put it back in storage, you know, real quick. And then, and now I'm driving the new Jeep.
It's kind of like if, you know, you learn more about West Her and Scott Beeler, and it's the vision that this man has for things like that. You know, I mean, he could have traded you and given you a brand new one, but he knows the sentimental value that is to you and your family.
It was great. And, I learned it firsthand from him. And it's interesting. Their business, he told me this when he first hired me. He goes, "I got to tell you something." He goes, in our company, when we're doing this stuff about our customers and our people, and I was ready for the, you know, customers always first kind of speech. He goes, "Actually, no." He goes, "Customers not first. Our people are first to us."
And he lives by it.
And he lives by it. Mm-hmm. The people in this building and all the stores they put together, they really work hard to make them feel like the company has got them, and they take care of them, and they care about the people that work for them. And then they know by doing that, those people are empowered to really take care of our customers. And it's worked. It's brilliant business plan. I can't tell you how proud I am to work for the company, because I know I've seen it 100 times over. The philanthropy that they do, not only the company, but Scott personally, their employees. I've got, you know, friends at this point in my life where I'm an adult. You know, you always, particularly in the 2008 housing crash, and then, you know, all the financial ups and downs our country has been through, recessions and whatever, and the pandemic and all this, people losing jobs, and you know, all of us are adults. All my friends who ever lose I always say, you got to go apply at West Her. You'll love it there. I always send everybody over, and So a couple of my friends have done it. So I'm without hesitation a huge ambassador for the company. I'm so proud of them.
You know, for you too, obviously over the years, your role with the company has grown and being the spokesperson. But when you started, like, you were a football player that was getting into being a spokesperson. So when you look back at the old Steve Tasker commercials compared to now, do you like see the growth in yourself as like a spokesperson? Because I know maybe it's kind of a funny way to look at it, but just your comfortability.
I don't know. It's because if I stunk at it when I started, the people they've got doing those commercials wouldn't let me stink, right? I mean, so it may be easier for them more than it is for me. I'm just doing the thing I do. Those people, even from the beginning, made it look tremendous. So, and I tell them it's a full-time job making me look good. And
You've obviously been in Buffalo a long time now. And, you know, Brad and I were kind of talking about this beforehand. There's 3 different versions of Steve Tasker that people know. Like, for me, I grew up with you as a football player,
right?
The guy who was the greatest special teams player of all time. There are others who are like, hey, that's the West Herr guy. And then there's others who's like, isn't that the guy that was at the Super Bowl the night the lights went out?
Yeah.
Which version do you prefer? Like, what do you think about that transition?
I had different roles in all of those things, but I like to think it's always just me. Always. I was always felt like I was the same guy. When I do the West Herr commercials, I'm the same guy that I am on the radio here on GR and here for the Buffalo Bills on One Bills Live. I'm the same guy when I do the commercials for West Herr. And I'm the same guy that was on the sidelines Super Bowl 42 when the lights went out. And all those years I spent at CBS Sports, which was a gift. I think the first piece of advice I ever got about going into broadcasting or television work, public speaking, whatever, you know, radio, TV, film, was in community college. I went to Dodge City Community College back in 1980, 80 through 82. And the first piece of advice I ever got was still the best piece of advice. He said, listen, when somebody gets on, just be you. You don't have to, because people smell it when you're not you're not you. And that was the best piece of advice I ever got, and it stuck with me. And I tell young people that all the time too. So all the roles you talk about with me being a football player or a spokesperson or a radio analyst or TV analyst, it's the same for me. I hope it's just the same guy doing something different.
And for you too, obviously, we talk about like this new Team West Herr concept. It's over the last few years. We've brought in, you already mentioned Josh Allen is now another spokesperson. Some of the other guys like Deion Dawkins and
Clay Moden.
But as you've kind of transitioned out of working maybe with these guys who are current Bills players, has there been any for you, I guess, thought like, not, I don't want to say mentor, but like showing maybe Josh the ropes, because he really hadn't done any sort of spokesperson role, and now he's working with you and same thing like that.
I think what it is, and once again, it's kind of the atmosphere we create on the set when we're doing commercials. You put them at ease, first of all. I mean, we're not curing cancer or anything.
Sure.
We're having fun. We're making car commercials and just tell them to be themselves. And also when we're doing a shoot and I'll ask questions about how they want me to stand and all this. And I'm very open to being directed and told what I need to do and how to deliver it. And so while me doing that sets an example for those guys about, okay, is that how you do it? Okay, I got it. Right. So if they tell him if he's doing it, then I'll do it too. Right. You know what I mean? I give them the freedom to just follow my lead and say, listen, if they tell me to do something, I'm going to do my best. Yeah. I'll do it. And it comes out faster. You're done faster. It comes out better. And even subtle, small differences make a big difference when you watch the commercial. So, those guys are all self-aware enough to know, to realize what's going on, how to do it. And Josh was, from the first time Josh came on, we started delivering lines together and talking about how it was going to go. And it was apparent immediately that it was going to go great. He was on it. He had the ability to see, oh, you want me to change? You want me to say it with a different inflection? You want me to deliver it differently with this mindset instead of that mindset? Kind of. He caught on to that innately. We almost didn't even have to talk to him about it, but he had the ability to deliver, even when we were trying to be funny, between the two of us, like me, the old guy, and him, the young guy, him trying to take my job, and me, you know what I mean? Being oblivious or whatever.
Right.
He got all the subtleties of that in rehearsal and doing it. He goes, oh, I get it, and could deliver it, and that it's
at-
light years ahead of where a lot of people are.
We shot it at the Ford Hamburg store. If you remember, we did the Black
Yeah.
Friday spot.
Yeah.
And I just remember we were standing behind the scenes watching and just saying, like, it was like a one take. Like, you guys got it in the first take, and it was Josh's first year with us, and it was just like
It was great.
one of those things. It was just a
Yeah,
natural.
and his ability to and we were acquainted before we did it, obviously, but the casualness and the willingness to be corrected or to insert or to do something was great, and it so it worked out really well. He's awesome. I mean, the guy's just what he seems to be, and he is himself all the time.
Do you think that's beyond his talent and ability on the field, and similar to your career, his character fits Buffalo so well? I mean, if you didn't know Josh Allen did not grow up here, you'd think he did, because he just blends so well with the community. Similar to your generation of Buffalo Bills or football from Buffalo as well. You know, the guy stayed here. You stayed here. You made a home here. He's doing that too.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I think he lives his life with whatever philosophy he could articulate, or what I observe. The guy's thankful for what he's got. He's not sitting here wishing he was in L.A. or wishing he was in Chicago or wishing he was in Seattle or some other NFL city. He's really thankful to be here, and knowing that he had no control over it, and the fact that he's bloom where you're planted kind of guy, and living your life with a thankful heart is a great philosophy. No matter what situation you find yourself in, try to find a way or try to find a reason to be thankful for it, and he's done that. And plus, I think his family is a huge part of his life, and having a family where you grow up busting a gut,
farm.
you got to work,
Right.
and you got expectations, responsibilities you got to live up to. Goes a long way when you get older, realizing that you still have responsibilities, and it's makes you feel pretty good when you can come through on them.
So we said earlier, there are different Steve Taskers that people know. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention the future possibilities of a Hall of Fame Steve Tasker. How much input do you have on that?
Zero.
I mean, is there anything that we can do?
No.
I mean,
How do you feel
what's
about
missing?
the
here?
support, though?
I think that ship sailed. I mean, I'm not going to get in the Hall of Fame, and I'm very appreciative of the conversation. It's flattering, obviously, and it's an honor to be mentioned. You can't lose sleep over stuff like that. I tease Thurman and all my buddies who are in, Bruce and Thurman and Jim and Andre and James Lofton, and I tell them, you put me in the Hall of Fame, it'll ruin me. My life's good now. It might ruin my life, right? All of a sudden I'll be famous. So I don't do that.
Right.
So no, I don't lose any sleep over it. I know I'm very flattered that I was considered. I was nominated all those years. I got semifinalist a bunch of times. It was awesome. But for now, I mean, I can't be. I'm past my modern day eligibility, and the list of old timers, which is what I fall into now, it's vast. It's vast. So,
But for the specific role you played, I mean, there's got to be something said for that.
oh,
I
sure.
think-
And a lot of it's been said. I mean, it's great, and I'm really appreciative of it. And the game, I think, has evolved away from players' ability to make differences in special teams because of player safety and some of the things that they can do now with alignment restrictions, and the rules have changed to such a degree that it's not so much about being able to make a superlative play anymore. It's about more of taking advantage of a catastrophic mistake. That's kind of what special teams has become, and that's different than what it was when I played.
And we actually had Reed Ferguson on recently, the long snapper for Buffalo here, and just spoke to him a little bit about being a special teams player now and kind of like being in, I don't want to say the shadow of Steve Tasker, but coming to play for Buffalo, knowing that, a great player in the special teams there. And he actually said it does impact you coming into the organization. So I was wondering for you, obviously you have your media role with the radio network that you're involved in, and you have your Westhurst spokesperson role, but do you do any sort of like work with the team directly with special teams or any mentoring, anything like that?
No, I say this, I have had conversations with Tyler Bass, met and spoke with Sam Martin and Reed. Reed's been here for a long time. So, I've had conversations with those guys, but I tell people if, why, they ask me, should you coach, would you coach? I'm I'm unqualified to be a coach. It is a big job, particularly as a special teams coordinator. You've got usually on most teams you've got at least an assistant special teams guy. So there's two of you, and you're coaching. If you got 53 guys on the roster, you're coaching 51 of them.
Right.
Because you got to have all those guys ready to play 11 spots, but it's actually like 88 spots. 11 on punt return, 11 on punt team, 11 on kickoff, 11 on kickoff return, 11 on field goal, 11 on field goal block. You got 11 on hands team, 11 on onside kick.
Jeez.
So you got all the free kick, all of those stuff, all the weird situations that you got to do as well. So
And most players are playing another position.
Yeah.
It's not
you're their
core
secondary. You're their
specialty,
second.
right?
You've probably got 8, 10 tops guys who are considered special teams specialists, which you probably have 6 or 7 that are core special teams guys that are on the roster every Sunday. Plus your 3 specialists: kicker, long snapper, and punter. So those guys are your guys, sort of, and then but they're the ones that are active every weekend, and then everybody else is doing it part time. So you got to get all those guys lined up and playing with an attitude and playing hard on a rep that they're not familiar. Most of them are very unfamiliar with.
You may not be ready for the coaching level per se, but your son Luke is also a professional athlete. What is that like for any dad or mom out there who's like, I think my son's or my daughter's next big thing? Everybody thinks that, right? But from your perspective, how do you really know? Like, what did you see in your son or your sons that you were like, okay, I think it's like the nurture versus nature kind of thing is what they say. Like,
A little bit.
What did you see?
I think a little bit of it is, I think a lot of it's nurture over nature. And certainly, society, some point society produces these people that become pro athletes. When I was growing up, I played every sport you could think of and every sport that was available. It's different now. Now kids are specializing at 8 years old.
Right.
I mean, they don't play any other sport other than hockey or other than baseball, other than football, whatever. That's very different than when I grew up. And I think it's the exact antithesis of what it should be. Kids should be playing every sport they can possibly play because it makes you better in all of them.
I mean, if you look at some of the top athletes now, they're multi-sport athletes.
Even wrestling or things like
exactly.
that.
I'll say this: if your kid is not clearly, not just to you as a dad or a mom, if your kid is clearly the best player on the team and other parents know it and say it to you, then just let him have fun.
Okay.
And that's at the lowest level as well as the mid level. And if he doesn't stay the best kid on that team all the way through, and in fact, get clearly more clearly better than everybody on that team, the higher he goes, you better just hope he's having fun, because that's the way it was for me. I was maybe one of the smallest kids around, and I was separated at a young age at a very, very small rural school. So I stood out, and then got a chance to go and play. And I got a chance to move on. Other guys on my team did as well. But the higher level you go, you still have to stand out and stand out and stand out. And that's how you kind of grow into it. And if it's not that, and plus, if your son or daughter isn't the driving force behind going to practice,
It's not going to happen.
and if that son or daughter is not the one who says, I need this, we got to go to this practice, I got to work on that. If they're not wanting to do it all the time and get better and have every opportunity, then that's probably a signal that there's other things that are more important to them. And
I think that's excellent advice.
And that's not too. So that's pretty, and sometimes it's hard to see, it's hard to say, how good are they? And there are some kids who are late bloomers too, and that kind of thing. I mean, I understand all that as well. But a sport like football in particular, where you got to have like 75 kids split in two playing a game. It's not something they can do a lot of. And you can play 7-on-7 and flag football and all that, and I get all that. But, you know, sports like tennis and golf are sometimes, you know, just as valuable. But, and I get the risk too. I'll say this about in defense of my own sport. I've said this a ton. You know, there's a lot of talk about parents not wanting their kids to play tackle football because it's dangerous, and I would acknowledge that. You can't not acknowledge it, but I'll say this too: that it's probably the best avenue to teach your kids selflessness of any sport there is, because of the physicality of it. Everybody wants to, you know, the little Johnny wants to be the touchdown, but a lot of kids learn a lot of valuable lessons and love playing on the football team, and they never touch the ball in a game.
Right.
Because they got to do their job for little Johnny to score the
Exactly.
touchdown.
It's a team sport,
and
for
you know,
sure.
they get bumped and fall down and scrape their knee or whatever, and they feel like, you know what, my teammates really need me to still keep playing, so I'm gonna try and go when I don't feel perfect, you know. And it's valuable lessons. And you know, kids are smart enough to know that when mom and dad go to work and they really wish they didn't have to go to work, but they go to work anyway, having to go and play when you don't really feel like playing is the same thing, you know. And kids learn that lesson. And I've said this a ton. I was on a Super Bowl team that went to 4 straight Super Bowls, and we were big and bad. I mean, we had it going. Hall of Famers, Hall of Fame coach. We were a road show, right? We come into a town and you go out and play football. You come out of the tunnel and you go out and stretch. We were the AFC defending champion Buffalo Bills.
Amazing.
We're sitting there. Let me tell you, this is the truth. You're stretching. Even as that team, you look down at the other end of the field. Those guys are kind of scary.
Right.
You know?
Yes.
It's like, man, those guys, they look athletic. Look at their core. You can spin it. Yeah. No matter. I mean, we're the Buffalo Bills, right?
Right.
You look down there and say, man, those guys look good. You know? And it's even magnified when you're a kid.
Right.
You're looking around all your little buddies who, you know, we don't even know what we're doing out here. We got to go play them guys.
Right.
It takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of courage. And I think lessons like that, like I couldn't do this alone, but with my friends, all right, let's try. Lessons like that are priceless, and that's something you get only from football, and the physical nature of it is in that regard, I think, a plus rather than a minus.
And for you too, I was thinking about this because we talk about this sometimes when you're watching the game, maybe through the prism of a media person per se. You watch it a little differently maybe than an average fan does. So for you, coming from being a football player and watching maybe, you know, it's almost work for you. It's like you're watching the games back to see, what did I do wrong here? What did I do right? Transitioning into a full-time media role where you're maybe have to explain it to the viewer. Was there an adjustment for you on how you kind of watched football from that way?
A little bit, yeah. And I was, you know, I'll say, I don't know what kind of analyst I ever was, but what I really felt I was good at was explaining a mindset to what the players thought about on any given play, what they were thinking. The X's and O's were, to me, and I appreciate, you know, like Chris Collinsworth, Tony Romo, and those guys, Troy Aikman, the ability, and I could do a little of it. You tell and say, here's what they're thinking, trying to, this route combination, you can draw the lines on the screen and that kind of thing. I thought, and at one point, this was 20 years ago when I started, 25 years ago when I started. So it was different. So I kind of tailored my remarks to make it more entertaining for people who really weren't interested in why they missed the double team block and why they're doubling this guy and got this guy singled up, you know. Sure. So I went and tried to be a little bit more general and more fun and just be a little bit more conversational in my analysis and you know, that kind of thing. So that was my philosophy on it. And like, once again, I wanted to be me.
Yeah.
Right.
And I wanted to impart whatever knowledge I could. But I always had a kind of a tilt towards the people who were not into the X's and O's and the matchups and the kind of thing, because there's more of them At that time, I felt like there was more people like that who just wanted to watch the game and be entertained than there were who wanted to know why the back didn't chip the defensive end when he left, that kind of stuff.
So, when you look back at this season that just wrapped up here for Buffalo, at least, what's your scorecard on that? I mean, obviously, it's not what we had envisioned mid-season, beginning of the season, but overall, what would you grade them as the end of the season?
They're a really good football team, and they're going to be a good football team the coming years too. They're not done at all. I'm really intrigued to find out how they reload the roster again, because they had to do it this year. They brought in some guys. Now you can say what you want about the quality of Roger Saffold, Tim Settle, Daquan Jones, bringing back Jordan Phillips, bringing back Shaq Lawson, and these guys. But their ability to get their roster and refield it and sprinkle in their draft picks made them the Super Bowl favorite. In doing so, there's a chance, and I'm thinking we're seeing it right before our eyes, particularly this year, the way we saw it. There's a chance that they can really do this and have the window not close ever. As long as Josh is there, or they've got a plan without Josh, or whatever. If they transition to another guy, whatever. Certainly, Josh is a huge part of this, but the way they have done it is really different because of the fact that they get guys that are highly motivated. They get them on short-term deals, and they come in and they play hard. And their coaching staff has been really good about getting them up to speed, getting them ready to play games. So you've got a bunch of guys, or at least a significant number of guys, on one-year contracts or short-term contracts, maybe 1 or 2 years, who are contributors, huge contributors. And a lot of teams have never done that. That they draft and develop, and they keep their own guys around, and whether the guy's good or bad, they kind of work around it or whatever. They pay guys no matter what if they've all of that. And there's a chance that the Bills won't do some of that. Certainly, what happens with Jordan Poyer, Tremaine Edmonds, Ed Oliver, guys who've played well, but you'll see if the team, what kind of offers and what kind of, how it goes for them in this offseason. I think I've always been really impressed by their ability to stay disciplined in their finances and let guys walk who are really huge contributors. They let Shaq and Jordan Phillips walk one year, and they played really well without them because they bring guys in who are motivated. So we'll see how that does, but I think it's really intriguing to see this team, Brandon Beane, build this roster year after year with different guys who are going to contribute in a major way, who are only there for a year or maybe 2 years, and then go away, and then somehow they got another guy, right? So I've been really impressed with that philosophy, and so far it's working really, really well.
And for you, Steve, too, being a former player, something I noticed, at the end of this season, and we've heard it the last couple years, and it's tough as a fan, I think, to hear it. You ask the players, you ask Josh Allen, you ask some of these big name players, what do you need to do to change the result next year? And it gets to a point sometimes where players this year, Isaiah McKenzie comes to mind, Dawson Knox comes to mind, they said, I don't know. Isaiah McKenzie's response was, I'm asking the same questions you're asking because we have the talent, we have the coaching, we have the right mindset, the right people, the right culture, and we just can't get it done in the postseason. So when you hear that as a former player, how do you even answer something like that? Because if they knew it, wouldn't they just do it and then they'd win the Super Bowl every year?
Well, the problem is, it's not like they're doing something wrong. Right. First of all, unfortunately, they're in a field of endeavor where you can do everything right for all the right reasons and lose to a bounce of the ball or a kick or an official's call or a drop pass, whatever. The hard part is doing what you do again this next year, except that you do it better. Right. You got to do it better. You got to do it more consistently. And you got to do it at a slightly higher level, because that's what we're talking about. They've been good enough to go to and win the Super Bowl for 3 years.
Right.
They really have. but they got to play well on that last game of the season. They got to play better than that other team. And certainly, they're going to meet a tremendous team, Kansas City or Cincinnati or whatever other team they're, Baltimore or whatever, what have you. You're always going to play a really good team, but you got to know you're as good as anybody out. This team is as good as anybody out there, and particularly when they're healthy. And so, they couldn't overcome some of the things that happened to them at the last part of this year, which was out of their control. And it never will be into their control in situations like that. Damar Hamlin going down, and then DeQuan Jones and Jordan Phillips being not. DeQuan's out and Jordan Phillips isn't 100%. Von Miller's out.
Right.
So you take two of your best three defensive linemen out and compromise a third best defensive lineman. It's going to be hard, and it's a lot of that stuff's out of your control. So you got to keep doing what you're doing, but just do it better and find ways to do it better and more efficiently. And so you show up more rested and healthier in the playoffs. They're not doing anything wrong. They're really not. They're not doing anything wrong. But they got to do it more consistently and when it counts at the end of the season. But you got to know, you don't play in a vacuum. It's tough. It's tough to get done.
What does the future hold for Steve Tasker? I mean, obviously, we want you with West Herr for years to come, be in Buffalo for years to come. Will you jump back into some kind of national broadcasting segment for your future
I don't know,
at all?
maybe. I don't know. If an opportunity arises, sure, you always think about it. I mean, you know how that is in the broadcast industry, sure. But it takes a long time. You craft a lifestyle that you want to maintain and very happy with. We love it. My wife and I love it here in Buffalo. We've been here for a long time, 35 plus years now. And we got grandkids and a couple of local sons and 3 kids that don't live here and 2 kids that do. I just turned 60 this last year. So that kind of hit me for a minute, right? So it took me a minute to get my mind around it, but I feel really good about it, where we're at and where I'm at. And I love working the job I'm doing with, not only with West Herr, but with, One Bills Live. I'm very proud of the city. I'm very happy to be in this city and the community that I live in. If it meant going back on the road to do NFL work or broadcast work, I would think about doing it, sure. But I don't know if I want to do anything that would relocate me at this point. I had an opportunity a while back to maybe do that, and I didn't. So
Well, we're happy about that.
yeah.
In a selfish way.
Yeah.
Something we ask a lot of the players that come on the show too, and I think just to kind of wrap up what we were just talking about was, being part of West Herr, the Western New York community as a whole. A lot of the players have really positive things to say, whether it's about the fan support, the community support. It's just different, perhaps, from other cities they've played in or lived in and things. And you obviously made your life here post-football. So I guess for you, being part of the West Herr group and then Western New York as a whole, what did you learn maybe about living here, and why did you decide, this is where I want my family to be?
We moved here. My wife and I are from a small farming community in western Kansas, and we lived right after we got married. It was right after my rookie season with the Houston Oilers, and we were in Houston for 4 months or so, right after we were married, and it was okay. Great, a bunch of good guys on that team, good coaches, loved it. When we got picked up by Buffalo off the waiver wire, we moved up here and immediately saw the community was a lot like our town, our hometown. A lot of people knew a lot of people in the town. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like everybody knew each other. Or had mutual friends. And I know that guy. He's not that. And then plus because of that, there's a great sense of community, and that felt like home to us. And plus, not for nothing, I walked into the first time as a first team meeting, and it was Marv's first game, so I kind of hit it right. Yeah. I'm still cashing that lottery ticket, I like to say. So the team was phenomenal to be a part of. It was a part of one of the all-time great stretches for an NFL team to be a part of, and it's led us. We tried to craft a life here that's awesome, and it has been. Mm-hmm. So all of that together, I think one of the things is, to put it simply, I guess, is wanted to be wise enough that when I found my spot, I didn't leave it, you know. And I think my wife and I would tell you we found our spot here, and we're very happy and thankful.
Well, best of luck on everything to come for you, the kids, the grandkids.
Yeah.
I mean, how many future Hall of Famers are in that mix? Who
I
knows,
know,
right?
They're all Hall of Famers, right? Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time,
My
Steve,
pleasure.
and Happy New Year. Best of luck to you guys
Thanks,
as well.
Thanks, Clay. Thanks,
And
Brad.
what a great opportunity to talk to the greatest special teams player of all time. Certainly a great spokesperson for West Herr as well. So thank you for your time today. And on behalf of Brad Gelber and everybody here at West Herr, thanks for joining us today. We will see you again in a new month for another exciting edition of the Team West Herr podcast.